Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I am your host, Media and Research Director, Evan Abrams, and I am joined, as always, by the one, the only, the great Brandon Anderson. Brandon, what's going on? How you doing before we get this rolling?
Man, heck of a day of football. I think until we got the snoozer blizzard game in the evening, we had, 12 out of 13 games so far, counting the Thanksgiving and Black Fridays, that were within the one score. I'm sure you had that stat too. Not great football necessarily, but close football, watchable football with weird endings. 2 witching hours on the Red Zone channel today. Lots of fun stuff to talk about.
At this point, all we can ask for is close, fun games. So I think we need one more close game on Monday Night Football to actually set a record. So hope we could talk about that a little bit later. But honestly, let's just start with the best game of the day. Hands down, it was the game we were all waiting for. And no, it's not Sunday Night Football. It was Eagles at Ravens. Eagles win the game 24-19. They cover as 3-point underdogs. The total goes under 50. The way this started was like any other typical Eagle game. Another scoreless first quarter for Philly. They're now 2-10 against the first quarter spread this year. Worst mark in the NFL. Everyone knows they started the season scoreless basically through, I don't remember what it was, 7 straight games or something like that, if not more. Now, of course, let's continue with the storyline here. They scored 14 in the second quarter. They led 14-12 at half. And of course, Philly is actually 10-2 against the second quarter spread this year. So starting slow, figuring it out before the half, and basically it just doesn't matter since they've been rolling this year. But it is interesting that slow starts kind of be a patented thing from them for Philadelphia. So hopefully that doesn't continue in future weeks. But again, they've got Carolina next week, so maybe that doesn't matter too much. Again, keep rolling here. The story also was Justin Tucker, right?
Yeah.
Other than what was going on in the game, him, every time he came out there to kick a field goal, everyone was holding their breath. Even first half totals, he obviously hits the field goal before the half to ruin the first half total, then missing everything in the second half and going on. He has 8 missed field goals already this season. That's something we could talk about another time. And John Harbaugh said after the game, he's sticking with him. He said it would be a mistake to get rid of Justin Tucker at this point, and hopefully nobody will be retweeting that in the playoffs when it comes back to potentially bite them. But listen, aside from that, you get to the fourth quarter, and Saquon Barkley just does what Saquon Barkley does. He absolutely took over this game and made it impossible for Baltimore to really get any type of rhythm. But here's what I really want to focus on. Ravens at home had 0 turnovers and 150 plus yards. In that spot, Harbaugh was 52-8 straight up in his career prior to tonight. Plus, the Ravens had more third down conversions, more time in possession, and fewer penalties, and still lost this game scoring under 20 points at home. So I don't necessarily look at this like, oh my God, what happened to the Ravens? I think maybe Philly's defense a little bit underrated. And I think Baltimore, just a bad game that 1-2 flips either way. Tucker hits his field goals. We're looking at this completely differently. So I don't necessarily think that this is a bad sign for Baltimore, but I'll give you a few stats before I toss it to you. So the Ravens this season are actually now 0-3 against the spread, though, on short rest. Their defense has allowed 103 points in those 3 games. Lamar, 9-0 straight up at home at -3 or less or an underdog. That broken today, so no longer perfect in that spot. And from the Eagles' point of view, A.J. Brown was great, so was Zay Flowers, but the Eagles now 9-0 straight up with A.J. Brown this year. They're 36-10 with A.J. since they acquired him. And Eagles maybe shouldn't have been a full 3 here. They are a 3-0 straight up as underdogs as well. Just from Jalen Hurts' point of view, because he's been absolutely fantastic. During their 8-game win streak, he's 4th in success rate since week 6. He's 1st in completion percentage over expected, while being also top 10 in average depth of target, which those two together, really, really impressive. And of course, 20 plus touchdowns, I believe, and 1 interception in there during that stretch. Just great football. Brent, what'd you see here? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, really hard to figure out what to do with this one. So the Ravens are actually up 9-0 early on. 9, not 10, because Justin Tucker missed the extra point. But They scored a garbage time touchdown with like 9 seconds left or something. Take that away, you're down to 12. That means only 3 other points the entire rest of the game from that 9-0 lead early. That's weird. This is the number 1 offense by DVOA, and it's number 1 by like margin, and number 1 ranking up there historically with great offense. And now I know the Eagles' defense has been really good, but man, that is a really impressive performance or depressive performance, depending on your perspective here. Justin Tucker missed the extra point, missed 2 field goals. That's a touchdown. That's 7 points in a 5-point loss. You said it, 8 missed field goals already. He entered the season the most accurate kicker in NFL history, 90.2% accuracy for his career. He's at 70% this season. 8 misses already. Just, yeah, it hurts to watch, honestly. It's like old Yeller status out there. Just like, we gotta all move on from this. I was ready to come in and just bury the Ravens, but I think you're right. I think the Ravens, honestly, by the metrics, were the better team. They just suddenly can't convert in the red zone. They keep settling for field goals. They're missing half the field goals now. But if you look at it, we'll get to the rest of the games. Pittsburgh gets their big win. They're 9-3. Baltimore is 8-5. We'll come back to MVP. 5 losses, you're out of MVP. I think the Lamar MVP campaign ended today if it was still out there. Baltimore goes into the bye week now. They play at the Giants, home for the Steelers. They got to have that one because the Steelers won the first one. At Houston, I think it's on Christmas, and then Browns to close out. They will be favored in all of those games. I think even at Houston, in all likelihood, they could win out. And I think if they do, they probably still take the division because the Steelers still have at Philly, at Baltimore, Kansas City, all in a row. Plus Cincy in Week 18, which Cincy's not going to be competing for anything anymore, but they certainly could beat you if you leave the door open. So I think it's entirely possible, and maybe even still likely, that the Ravens are the right team in the division here. You're probably going to be the 4 seed at this point, maybe the 3, but I don't know that this necessarily killed them off from where they're hoping to be. I think it just further solidified them kind of being middle of the pack AFC. It's Chiefs, Bills at the top, then Steelers, Texans, Ravens in some order. I think this kind of stuck things in that order going forward.
Call me crazy, but even after the playoffs last year, I don't necessarily mind the Ravens having to go on the road in the playoffs. I might actually prefer it, depending on what the spread will be in those games and the run game with Henry. I don't think it's a super big issue. But all right, let's keep rolling here. We got a lot of games. So let's go to... Listen, this is what you put as the second best game of the day, so I'm just going to allow you to kind of go with it here. Seattle at the Jets. Seattle wins 26-21 as a 1.5-point road dog, which is very important because there was lots of movement right before kickoff, which tends to happen with the Jets. I believe they've gotten the steam the last 8 weeks, and they are 1-7 in those games, but the total goes over 41.5 here. The stat: the Jets are the first team in the Super Bowl era to be favored in 9 of their first 12 games and be 3 or 9 and worse. That's from ESPN Stats and Info. Today was their 6th straight game as a favorite. All I got to say is I just think we're done here.
I mean, I thought we were, but how many times have we been done here with the Jets? And we keep being done here because they keep giving them favorites again. Like, I struggle to figure out, okay, what order do we put the noon games in? They won't be next week.
That's all we know.
Yeah, the 1 p.m. games for the East Coast, folks. This game to me, because of, like, if you're following the podcast, I'm all in on the Seattle futures again. Seattle Island, I got the over, I got the division like 4 times now, I got the playoff odds, and I was on this game at the hot read. Man, I needed this game. We needed this game, listeners, and it was rough. Seattle special teams tried so hard to give the game away. Seattle fumbled 3 straight kickoffs in the first half. 3 straight kickoffs, and they gave up a kickoff touchdown still in the first half. So Seattle's defense was like, oh, you're going to fumble every kickoff? I have an idea. After those 3 consecutive kickoff fumbles, they didn't allow any more kickoffs again. The third one of those 3 came 5 minutes into the second quarter. The Jets didn't kick off again because they got the ball in the second half, and they did not score another point after that. So here's the stage. It's 21-7 Jets. They're up. They got the kickoff return touchdown. They got the short field touchdown off one of the fumbles. They have the ball again in the red zone off another fumble on the kickoff. And Leonard Williams, former Jet Leonard Williams, monster game. 2 sacks, 3 TFLs, 2 QB hits, pass defense, and then this play. Tips the ball, dropping back in coverage because Mike McDonald, of course, tips it, catches it, rumbles, and I do mean rumbling. This is a big dude against his old team all the way down the field, like 95 plus yards for the touchdown. 21-7, could have been 28-7. Instead, 21-13. They did miss the extra point. But to me, somebody living and dying on Seattle games, it felt like it saved the season yet again. We're there a lot with Seattle as well, I must admit. Seattle, it felt like they had like 700 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. This team cannot block to save its life. It cannot convert a 1-yard play to save its life. We get at one point like a 4th and 1, 4th and goal on the 1, and somehow that play turns into a pass play that Geno Smith takes like an 18-yard sack on. So you give up even the advantage of getting stuffed at the 1. It's brutal out here, but Seattle survives. They gave up that early Jets touchdown, not the short field one, but they gave up an 11-play, 80-yard touchdown. After that, the Jets, the rest of the game, 48 plays for 175 yards, 3.6 yards a play. This Seattle defense is legit, and this is the 4th straight week out of the bye week that they've been really good. They've won 3 games in a row. They are now up a full game in the division with that Arizona loss. It was a tense few minutes, but they're up a full game. San Francisco looks probably out of it. We'll get to them. As for the Jets, they have now lost 8 of 9, 6 by 1 score. Aaron Rodgers looks ready to be out of here, and quite frankly, I'm ready for him to be out of here too.
The Seattle thing is just crazy. They get Arizona next week. They're 2.5-point underdogs in Arizona, which obviously now a big game. It's just fascinating. Geno, 12 interceptions, 13 touchdowns, and Seattle just keeps figuring out a way. And for anyone who didn't check out, you got to see Geno Smith's tweet after the game, just completely trolling. Absolute revenge game here for the Seahawks. So fantastic. All right, let's keep rolling. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, the Voodoo, wins 44-38 as a 3-point underdog. Total sales over 46. I mean, the stat here before I hand it to you, Steelers 5-0 straight up as underdogs this season. Rest of the NFL, 29% straight up as dogs. Tomlin, 22-15 straight up, 26-9-2 against the spread as an underdog versus the AFC North. They just continue to figure it out.
Yeah, another rah-rah Tomlin spot. I had the game guide on this one. You just got to just bet it. I don't know why it works. You just got to bet it. The other stat that I was sure you'd have, I'm sure you've got it in there. Mike Tomlin, 9-3. That means officially, for the bajillionth year in a row, Mike Tomlin will yet again not finish under 500. He has never done it still. I believe that hit the season win total over as well. They put that right on the 500. So here we are again. I did not think it was happening this year, but every year I don't think it's happening, and then it somehow does again. Joe Burrow, my man, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, admittedly, he threw a pick, he lost 2 fumbles, he had 4 sacks. He's not playing mistake-free football. 300 yards and 3 scores. He's now done that 5 times this season in a loss. He has 5 games. There's only 20 games all season with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Russell Wilson had one in this game. Joe Burrow has 5 of the 20 in the NFL, and his team is 0-5 in these games. For reference, he's done that with 1 interception or less 5 times this season. Tom Brady did it 4 times his entire career and lost the game there. So Joe Burrow, I think weirdly, is the MVP this season. He just doesn't have any defense or run game or coaching or any help, and you don't get to be the MVP when you keep losing the games all the time. We had almost 900 yards of offense. I don't know about you, Evan, but I did not have 44-38 Steelers as a score prediction in this game, or ever. At any game of my life, I've never predicted the Steelers to win 44-38. They were 99th percentile EPA on early downs. They were 99th percentile on success rate on early downs. This Bengals defense is an atrocity. If the Steelers are doing that to you, Russell Wilson, 414 yards and 3 scores, it is over for this team. So we are at that point of the season. It's December now. Teams like the Jets and the Bengals, get them off the graphic. The playoff, who's in the race? You're not in the race. You've never been in the race. I'm tired of talking about you. They're out of here.
Yeah, one player leads the league in both passing yards and passing touchdowns, and they're 4-8. So absolutely just insane. And I'm going to go into my big stat here, which I'm doing as a segue because it is the Joe Burrow stat. I tweeted this out. So Burrow has 30 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions now through 12 games. He's the 7th quarterback to do that in history. Here are the other quarterbacks to do that. Mahomes, he went 11-1. Rodgers, 9-3. Breeze, 10-2. Rodgers, 9-3. Rodgers, 12-0. Brady, 12-0. Those other 6 quarterbacks have 9 losses through 12 games. Burrow has 8 himself. So absolute just insanity. And then the other one here I'll give is this season, teams who score 30 plus are now 80-7 straight up. The Bengals have 4 of those 7 losses. Since November 1st, teams who score 30 or more, 28-2. The 2 losses are both the Bengals. It is just absolutely insane that their defense cannot have a stop when they need it. And now, Burrow, like you said, turnovers all over the place, fumble, the strip sack, leading to points. We get it, but numbers are insane. The last one I'll give you before we move to the best of the rest. Entering Monday Night Football, home teams in the NFL this year, 94-95 straight up. So a Broncos win will make it even, but home field advantage, completely and utterly meaningless at this point. So find a different angle. Best of the rest. Arizona at Minnesota here. So Minnesota wins the game 23-22 as a 3.5 point favorite. Arizona gets the cover. Total goes under 45.5, barely. So Arizona led this game 19-6. Ended up losing on the road in Minnesota. So Arizona is now just 8-5 straight up since 2022 when leading by 10 plus points at any point. That is the 3rd worst mark in the NFL behind just the Raiders and Bears. You do not want to be on a list with the Raiders and Bears in any category. So that is definitely glaring on Kyler Murray more than anyone. Brandon, what you got here? This is your team. Nice win.
It's my team. I'm rocking the Vikings jersey again. I gotta be honest, this wasn't necessarily the most exciting game of the day. A fun finish, but kind of a snoozer throughout. 8 of the first 11 drives in this game resulted in a field goal attempt, at least. We had, in the first half alone, 5 field goals and a missed field goal. Of course, because I went back to the well in the first quarter bet one more time. We're kicking field goals in this game here. Cardinals up 19-6. Minnesota finishes from there. Touchdown, field goal, touchdown. During that stretch, Kyler Murray, 2 interceptions. The defense did the job. Honestly, I think both teams left a lot on the table. Arizona's going to rue losing this one, though. They had over 100 yards more than Minnesota. They had 26 more plays than the Vikings. Minnesota was 1 of 8 on 3rd down. Wins this game. Why? Arizona was 1 of 6 in the red zone. That is a rough number for you. That's all those field goals you're settling for. I kind of think big picture, this is maybe a spot to sell high on Minnesota and buy a little bit on Arizona. So Minnesota, defensive numbers been fading a little bit. 400 plus yards for Arizona here. Don't miss the fact that they're getting the yards and moving the ball. Even they're selling for field goals. Yards are a lot more telling for defenses going forward. Minnesota plays Kirk Cousins next week, Monday night against Chicago, then at Seattle, Green Bay, at Detroit to end the season. This might still be the 6th seed. The Vikings are, I think, 11-2 right now. You could win the division. You could be the 1 seed. If you lose a couple of games, especially lose that Packers game, you're the 6th seed. So the bottom could drop out real quickly here on this team. They don't feel like a 10-2 type team right now. Arizona, 6-6. We talked about Seattle. I got my Seattle stock. Arizona plays Seattle next. They get to host this time. They just played them a week ago. We'll come back to that one on the hot read. Then they get New England, Carolina. That feels good. Then the Rams and the Niners, who by that point probably will be out of things and not necessarily even playing their top guys. So I think it maybe is the time for some of my Seattle stock to put a little bit on Cardinals Island also and balance things out a little bit. I think this is maybe more of a 2-horse race than it seems. The Rams play the Bills and the Niners up next. I'm not sure that they're in this thing. So I think Arizona, this is a game they should have had. I appreciate that they didn't as a Vikings fan and a Seattle Island backer, but I think it's a good chance to invest in futures opposite of the game result here.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have thought at this point San Francisco would be last in the NFC West, but that is where we sit. Okay, Sunday Night Football. San Francisco at Buffalo. Buffalo wins the game 35-10 as a 6.5-point favorite. The total goes barely under 45.5. I think the story entering this game, and which ended up probably being the story in the post game, was part of the MVP conversation. So before the game started, Josh Allen was plus 130, Saquon Barkley plus 270, Lamar plus 550, Goff 7-1. After the game ended, Josh Allen moved to minus 230.
Wow.
So minus 230 favorite, Saquon 5-1, Lamar 11-1, Goff 11-1. So a large gap after everyone saw him catch a touchdown, throw a touchdown, rush a touchdown, kick a touchdown. He did literally everything he could have done in this game for Buffalo, which leads to the odds move. So let's talk about the game for a second. It is Purdy's first regular season game as an underdog, but to me, it just wasn't even really a fair shot. This just never, even though at the end of the first quarter it was in reach, it just never looked like San Francisco was in the game as a whole. Like, I never thought after 4 quarters it would be a close game just after watching a few drives in this one. Buffalo just looked so much more comfortable. Ray Davis gets the first touchdown. He was 6-1 anytime, 32-1 first touchdown if anyone had that out there. Now, early on, you have some injuries. Josh Allen got banged up. Now, CMC's one is a lot more interesting and a lot worse since it looks like it's a PCL injury. He could be done for the season at this point. So, not great overall, but not sure it matters for a San Francisco team that so many injuries this year completely caught up to them. Aside from that, I'm not sure how much there's really to talk about here. The Bills clinched the AFC East. They are the first NFL team to clinch a division with 5 weeks to play since Peyton Manning and the Colts in 2009. So it's over. They can worry about other things, and obviously you want to get home field, and there's some work to do there, especially with the Chiefs and trying to catch up to whatever the heck they're doing. But that's Buffalo's story. From San Francisco's point of view, and I tweeted this out, and I think this is just a sentiment on San Francisco's season. They're 2-10 against the second half spread. They are 3-13 second half spread in their last 16 games dating back to last year. They just can't close games. And even when they stay close, they are just falling apart in the second half. And to me, yes, some of that's the injuries and some of that's the players, but it's also a lot on Kyle Shanahan. I got to put some of it on him as well. And just think about this. That Christmas game last year against the Ravens, everyone was watching. Everyone lifted it up. One of the best games of the year. San Francisco, including that game, is 8-10 in their last 18 games, including that game. They're just decimated and a completely different team here, Brandon.
Yeah, it's really crazy. If you look at the Kyle Shanahan stats in San Francisco, basically, I think maybe all but 1 year. I don't have the exact number, but I think it's like 7 years now. And one season, this isn't true. Otherwise, he either makes the NFC Championship, so Final Four, or misses the playoffs entirely. It is all or nothing. And increasingly, it looks like nothing this year. This is not what we expected. We know about the Super Bowl losers curse and all that kind of crap. Just too many injuries, too many things going wrong. You're not going to win this game like playing the Killers and you know they're rocking the stadium and you got the lake effect snow. This is like a schedule loss when the weather comes in like that and you're playing in Buffalo. Not really their fault. Injuries or not, you're probably not going to win that game. Sorry, that's going to happen sometimes. You're just going to have a not your day sort of game. That, to me, is the story of this game tonight. You just can't afford it anymore. There's no margin of error left. The division is still there, but I don't know. Like, I think they're not dead, except that McCaffrey might not play again, so then they might actually be dead again. I don't know.
I don't know. Jordan Mason looked good, though. So, I mean, that happened for a while. So, San Francisco, upcoming schedule. You got 2 home games. You got the Bears. You got the Rams. So there's an opportunity to maybe get back to 7-7, but I think we're done yet.
Right. I don't think we're done with the Niners just yet. We're going to hear from them again. I'm not sure that they're going to make it. I don't know that I'd bet it, but I don't think that they're just going to roll over here. I think we got more story to tell.
All right, let's keep moving. Chargers at Falcons. Chargers somehow find a way to win this game, 17-13. They close as a 1-point favorite with Atlanta being the dog. Total sales under 47. Just never really even got close to this one. Another just low-scoring game for Herbert and the Chargers. Herbert 18-7 to the under since the start of last year. Best mark in the NFL, and you'll talk about it. Cousins 4 picks, just never really gave him a shot.
Yeah, Cousins' 4 picks cost them the game straight up. The Falcons nearly doubled the Chargers in yardage in this game. They should have
Wow.
absolutely won this game. Cousins had a pick 6 and he had interceptions on long drives. The interception on the 9th play of a drive, the 10th play, and the 14th play of a drive, all those in scoring range. In a game they lose by 4, including giving 7 points to the other team on a pick 6. Why? Well, the Chargers couldn't do anything offensively. Their last 6 drives of the game, 14 plays for 27 yards. They only had 1 drive over 5 plays, and this is against the Falcons, who are not a good defense, who have been bleeding points to pretty much anyone outside the division. So, not a good showing. Either team was not good on late downs. Just ugly game. You're forgiven if you just kind of forgot this game happened. If you're watching a red zone, this ended like 2.5 hours in. The entire witching hour was still to come with all the other close games, and I know this one was close. It just was over and off the screen entirely with like the whole 4th quarter to go on most of the other games. Chargers, they won. Either how are they getting there? They've won 5 of 6 now. I think they're pretty safely in the playoff picture. We'll come back to them in the hot read. Falcons, 3 losses in a row now tied with the Buccaneers in the division. And Kirk Cousins goes back to Minnesota next week. They do have an easy closing stretch, but to put in perspective, Atlanta versus Tampa, who we'll get to in a second. Tampa Bay is 73 points of point differential ahead of the Falcons, who are now minus 34 on the season. So they might both be 6-6, but the numbers are pretty clear who the better team is right now, and Atlanta's got to right the ship in a hurry.
Yeah, and we can just keep rolling here because the next game we're going to talk about is Tampa Bay and Carolina, which is a direct correlation here. And I know you and I have had some Bucs futures, and we've been talking about building on that. This was perfect. I mean, today basically worked out exactly how you wanted to, except for Baker Mayfield being in a walking boot, which I don't love, and I hope he's okay. I haven't heard any news there, but he did get banged up in his ankle injury in the game. But the Bucs win the game 26-23. Carolina does get the cover, though, as a 6.5-point underdog. Total goes over 46. I mean, the game starts with just one of the more ridiculous catches from Mike Evans. Basically making a one-handed catch in the end zone while falling out of bounds. A lot of people at the Action Network had Evans score a touchdown. Everyone was pretty excited. But the story here is Bryce Young. I mean, overall, since getting benched, he has been, I don't even want to say formidable because he's been better than formidable. Like, he's actually been a threatening quarterback down the field to opposing defenses and not someone who's scoring 0 and 3 points in the first half and someone who's just turning the ball over so consistently that they don't give Carolina a shot. That's not this quarterback, which again makes them dangerous. And that's really the story of the game to me. I mean, Thielen also should have had a touchdown before the half. Everyone's screaming and yelling. He was definitely in bounds. Carolina mostly should have won this game and wouldn't have been good for our futures, but it really would have probably been the win of Bryce Young's career at this point. So that to me is most likely the story. It was a great Bucky Irving game, and I think that probably says something for Carolina's next game next week against Saquon Barkley. They can't stop the run at all, and you have to assume Saquon is going to go crazy. So those MVP odds, kind of interesting considering they've got Carolina on deck. I will just say that. And my one note here, Baker is just an absolute gamer. When he was hurt on the drive, 30 seconds left, trying to get them into field goal range, I mean, he just seems to get the job done so much lately since he got to Tampa Bay. He's a different quarterback. He's confident. The franchise believes in him. I'm a fan of his, and I just love his moxie. And especially with the moxie, and he doesn't have Godwin anymore, it's just respect all around there. So the OT, the game goes to overtime, and obviously goes over, but absolutely barely. There was a moment there, late overtime, where we were considering a tie here, which would have actually cashed the under for some people, since it was 46.5 at the high this week, which kind of got fun there at the end. But listen, Thielen again makes one of the best catches. That catch in overtime, I don't know if you saw that, with one hand down the sideline. Honestly, one of the more ridiculous catches I've ever seen. And then obviously Chuba Hubbard fumbles the next play, and that kind of ends it. My two notes before we move on here. Carolina has now covered the spread in 4 straight games. So this is a bit of a turnaround for them, and they're now getting 13 points next week in Philadelphia, which is a completely different story. And then the Baker stat I'll give you, Baker against divisional opponents. He's now 9-9 against the spread as an underdog, or 9-8 against the spread as an underdog, and 5-13 as a favorite. So he just probably doesn't belong laying that many points, especially against this, formidable Carolina offense in terms of points they can put up. But that's what I got here. Anything else here?
I mean, I was just dreaming a little bit about Panthers Island. Maybe coming back into play. We got to overtime on that Thielen catch. It's all right. We'll switch over to Bucs Island.
You felt it for
Seattle
like
Island.
a good 60 seconds. There was like 60 seconds there. Yeah. You were like, interesting.
Not even enough time for me to tweet out an Undertaker gif. It just was over just that fast.
All right, let's keep moving here. So before we move on, a quick announcement. Action Network is running back our annual Black Friday sale, and live through Cyber Monday, live through in the next few days. So make sure you get a hold of it, offering our best price of the year on a year-long Action Pro sub. So if you are still aren't a Pro subscriber, visit actionnetwork.com/Black Friday to get $40 off a year of Pro. Receive instant access to all the picks, all the projections from Brandon Anderson to Chris Raybon to Stuckey, our whole Action team. That's actionnetwork.com/Black Friday for the best price of the year on Action Pro. All right. The rest of the slate, close games, but just not as good of games. So let's go quick here. Indy at New England. Indy wins 25-24, 2.5-point road favorite. New England covers. Total goes over 41. The only fun stat I'm going to give you before I toss it to you, Colts lost to the Lions last week. That means teams after facing the Lions now 1-9 against the spread this season. Now, this goes a little further. They're 15-28 over the last 3 years, the least profitable prior opponent against the spread in the NFL. So maybe there's an impact there, but it becomes kind of interesting. What else you got here, Brandon?
Yeah, pain for me. If you tailed on the Colts -1.5 on the hot read to get the 1-point win here. The Colts get down, get the touchdown, and then I see the 2 fingers up in the air, right? We're going for 2, and I just know we're cooked either way at this point. Make or miss, this thing is over. It's like 12 seconds left. Richardson runs in for 2, the play you should be doing, because that's what he's out there for. Game wasn't over. We brought Joey Sly out. They barely even got this onto the Red Zone channel. Joey Sly tried a 68-yard field goal for the Patriots for the win. That thing was only short like a yard or 2. Like, we nearly made NFL history today, getting the longest kick ever. That's about all from this game. Patriots actually were the much better team. 422 yards here on the Colts. It's not a great look for a team that's 6-7 and kind of hanging around. I keep wanting anyone but the Texans. Indy, you're our last shot here. I got to downgrade them after this. They get the win. I like what I see from Richardson-ish on the running it in. But as usual, like huge A-dot, not much completion, 50% completion rate, 109 passing yards. Not a great performance here. You get the win, but not good enough for them.
I know you tweeted that Jacksonville future on the division at 500-1. I was touting the Colts future. So when I saw Jacksonville getting back in the game today, I was like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here. Well, at least the Colts get the win, so I guess it lives another day. But let's keep moving here. Rams at Saints. Rams win the game 21-14. Covers 2.5-point road favorites. Total goes under 48.5. I mean, the only interesting thing from the beginning of this game was the fact that Blake Corum got a ton of run. And then when you know that a guy like that's getting a run, especially with the Sean McVay running back system, which is he just goes with whoever the heck he wants. And if he's hot, he keeps rolling with them. So at that point, you said to yourself, well, when's Kyren Williams going to get his run? Well, Kyren Williams scored a touchdown in the second half and basically had 100 yards. And he completely changed the script on the game. So he was going with one guy, going with another guy, just kind of what McVay does. The Taysom Hill injury just sucks for New Orleans. Carted off. Believe he's done for the season at this point. Bad injury for him. So that was a story. But really, down 7, New Orleans, fourth quarter. The Saints, 14-play drive. They knock off 7:45 off the clock. And it ends with a turnover on downs. They just basically did nothing with the ball for 8 minutes, drove all the way down the field, and had nothing to show for it. And as we talked about with the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse, game-winning sack, fumble, probably helps him out a little bit in that sense. It's a nice play that everyone saw in red zone. Some stats here, and this one just crazy. Derek Carr, 3-8 straight up now, coming off a bye in his career. 1-7 straight up ATS off a full bye since 2017. Worst of any quarterback. You could find a lot of bad Derek Carr stats out there, but being 1-7 straight up off a full bye since 2017 is just kind of wild in itself. Carr now 0-4 against the spread versus Sean McVay. Not a good matchup for him. And the interesting thing I saw today was, or at least this week, teams off a bye, 1-5 straight up. The only win was Buffalo tonight. And this year, I believe they're 11-15 straight up teams off a bye. So kind of rare where rest is really not meant a lot. All right, let's keep rolling. Houston at Jacksonville. Houston, like I said before, barely hangs on, 23-20 as a 3.5-point road favorite. Jags get the cover for anyone who bet them this week. 3.5s, 4s, 4.5s all came through. Total goes under 44.5. Maybe the craziest stat of them all here before I hand it off to you. Texans, 11-2 first half against the spread. 2-11 second half against the spread. The best first half team, the worst second half team. And boy, did they let Jacksonville back in the game with Mac Jones after that terrible injury to Trevor Lawrence. What else you got here?
Yeah, that was my stat also. And it was not a great Sunday for me betting-wise. We didn't have our best result, but I will help victory lap a little bit on this one. We wanted to avoid Texans full game, finishes 3.5. So you get the hook if you took Texans full game. I specifically want us to play the first half. We played that trend. We got the 2.5. We're up 6-3 at halftime. We won with the hook at the half. You lose at the hook with the whole game. So, not a great day, but we got to celebrate our wins where we can get it. Obviously, the big story here is just Trevor Lawrence. Wicked hit. Pretty dirty looking hit, honestly, from Aziz Al-Shaair. Lawrence gets carted off. Al-Shaair gets ejected. There's like a big, everyone's coming off the benches on the field. I have to believe Trevor Lawrence is done for the year. I don't know why he was playing in this game to start with, but I don't know why he would play going forward now. These teams basically are about equal in this game. And that's sort of telling about what the Texans are when you're about equal to not just the Jaguars, but the still Doug Peterson and no longer Trevor Lawrence Jaguars featuring Mac Jones. I don't know, man. Houston's going to probably just win the division, but they might be like 11-6 in the playoffs and be a home underdog in the opening round. They might have to play Baltimore in that first game. Even the Chargers. I don't know who's going to want to back Houston in the playoffs at this point.
Houston is honestly an enigma at this point. I mean, they find ways to win games. Everyone really doesn't like them. Everyone has so much negative to say about them. But again, they are going to make the playoffs. I mean, you and I for weeks have been trying to find different angles to tell people to bet against Houston because, and to be honest, we're right. We are correct. We see it every single week that there is holes all over this team. And today, I mean, they didn't cover, but they still get the win, and the win's all that matters when it comes to the playoffs. All right, last game before we get to Monday Night Football. Yeah, we didn't forget it. Tennessee at Washington. Washington wins 42-19 as a 6-point home favorite. Total goes over 45.5. Here's my stat. Since the start of last year, the Titans are 0-8 against the spread after a straight-up win. They're the only team in the NFL without a cover after a straight-up win in that span. Every other NFL team has at least 2 covers in that span. The last quarterback to cover for the Titans after a straight-up win would be Ryan Tannehill. So it has been downhill, and today they basically didn't get there till 2:30 p.m.
Yeah, this was the one game we don't have to say too much about today. Sometimes we get this 42-19, and I say, the score actually isn't what it looks like here. No. This is every bit what it looks like. This was a get-right game to get right on anything against a pretty good Tennessee defense, too. I've talked a lot about this year. Jane Daniels runs one in, throws for 3. I think we're back to where we should have been on the Rookie of the Year race. We'll see about Monday night. We'll get to that shortly. Here's the fun stat from this one. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine from the Titans. I know the Commanders get all the touchdowns. Westbrook-Ikhine gets 3 catches, 61 yards, 2 scores. This dude played the first 4 games without getting a target, mostly special teams. He has now scored a touchdown in 7 of 8 games since. He has 8 touchdowns on 20 catches for the season. He is a touchdown machine, shades of Mark Boerichter. He played fantasy football back in the day, like 2002.
That's great.
The exact line 8 touchdowns on 20 catches, assuming Westbrook-Ikhine wouldn't catch one again. I talked to Jill earlier, our touchdown expert. Westbrook-Ikhine is now the number 2 most profitable anytime touchdown player on the season. If you just blind bet him 1 unit every week, you're up plus 37.4 units on the season. His odds had been like 11 and 15 to 1 the first few weeks, and then 5 to 1 for a few of the touchdown hits. He's getting it every single game. He's only missed 1 game in the stretch. I don't know how you keep doing that forever, but apparently him and Will Levis got something going on. It's a pretty weird random stat when we get one of those. 8 touchdowns on 20 catches, 40% touchdown rate. Anything above 10 is ridiculous. That's like Mike Evans territory. So gotta celebrate in a losing effort our guy Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
That is crazy. I'll give you one more. So rookie of the year odds are up right now after today, before Monday Night Football, after today's slate. Jaden Daniels minus 270, Bo Nix plus 240. So it has widened a little bit. Now, obviously, Bo Nix hasn't played yet, and Jaden Daniels scored 40 points. So I think that's being built in, but maybe some value if you think Denver wins tomorrow night. The one thing I do want to say, we were giving out Brock Bowers as a potential flyer before Black Friday. He's down to 12 to 1. So he is the third choice, and even just in the mix at the moment, I believe he was 50, 60 to 1 range when we were talking about before his big game. So interesting.
Yeah,
all right, Monday Night Football.
Was tweeting about it, getting the word out, like if Jaden Daniels was a stumble, I think Nix and Daniels will both have to stumble, but I think Bowers is the guy who could step in there. You may have missed the window on it, probably before that big Black Friday game that everyone watched. Yep. I think this is important, though. We've talked for a few weeks now about the cliff and Washington falling off. This is the one game we didn't really have much to say about. I think it's important to know how good they were in this game. Again, against a pretty good Tennessee defense, Washington's offense looked like it did the first month of the season. And that is not a zero data point. Like, the Titans have been pretty good defensively against a bunch of teams. So I think we have to factor this in and assume Washington can still figure things out. Just maybe not against the very top teams in the league. That's fine. A lot of teams can't do that.
Yeah, and 28-0 or whatever didn't help start either. All right, Monday Night Football, Cleveland at Denver. I'll give you 2 notes before I toss it off to you. So Monday Night Football overs have been a cash cow. They're 11-4 so far this year. And Sunday Night Football has been the complete opposite, all unders, including tonight. Oh, and so Monday Night Football overs by 5.5 points per game. And Bo Nix. So Bo Nix has closed as a favorite 5 times in 12 career starts. He is 5-0 straight up and against the spread in those games, covering by almost 14 points per game. The crazy thing is, so Jaden Daniels started 5-0 against the spread as a favorite. Caleb Williams started 3-0 against the spread as a favorite. So just rookie quarterbacks tend to be covering this year, a little bit opposite of what we saw last year. But if Bo Nix gets the cover on Monday Night Football, he would be the first rookie to start 6-0 against the spread as a favorite in the Super Bowl era. So something we have never seen before. What do you got here? Any thoughts?
Yeah, not the most interesting game in the world, if I'm being honest, but I do have a good bet. I actually have a Monday Night Escalator I'll get to in a second. And the Browns offense, we've talked about this a little bit, lots better under Jameis Winston. So they're moving the ball much better now. They're still ranked dead last by DVOA on the season. This is not the worst offense in the league. They're not even close to that. They're not great. It's still Jameis Winston, but they're moving the ball. I think Jim Schwartz's defense are going to get some pressure on Bo Nix too, so we'll see exactly how that goes. But I think these are relatively similar teams. If I had to pick a side, I'd be inclined to take the points with just such a high line on 2 teams I don't think we get a ton of scoring on. My angle is Jerry Jeudy. This is the Jerry Jeudy revenge game. I want Jerry Jeudy overs. Denver basically buried his career, and now my man got a real quarterback with Jameis Winston, and he's actually balling out pretty good. Before Jameis got the lineup, Jeudy was at 6 targets a game, averaged 3 catches for 38 yards. Pretty much nothing like he had been in Denver. Since then, 9 targets a game, 6 catches for 95 yards on average with Jameis Winston. It is a huge leap. He's at least 5 catches, at least 73 yards, all 4 Jameis games. Denver is the best defense in the league against fantasy receivers, but bottom half against wide receiver 1. And that's Jeudy, especially because Cedric Tillman is out this game with an injury. So Jeudy is going to get a lot of attention. Last week, Jacoby Myers, 10 catches, 121 yards, 15 targets against Denver. The week before, Zay Flowers, 127 yards, 2 scores against Denver. I don't think I want a touchdown here. That's not Judy's game. He's not really a big volume guy. I want the big plays. I want the Jameis chucking it downfield. Give me the yardage stuff. So here's the escalator. I put this into the app on Saturday, so check the line, get the best line you can. I grabbed the over, the traditional yards, 57.5, wherever in that range, 59, 60, somewhere in there is probably fine. I took a little 70 plus. It was at plus 145. He's hit that all 4 games with Jameis Winston, so I think that's a nice alt if that line had gone up. And then I took 100 yards, 4.5 to 1, 120 yards at 9 to 1. Again, he just hit that himself 2 weeks ago, 6 catches, 142 yards. And Jacoby Myers and Zay Flowers just did it against Denver the last 2 games as well. So I think there's a chance here against his old team that was more than happy to move on. I think maybe we get Jerry Jeudy to make this one a little interesting for us. You got any bets for Monday night?
Yeah, I like that Judy play. I was on that as well. I was considering Njoku receptions. The thing I really have a problem with is Jameis is so unpredictable. Other quarterbacks seem much more predictable in terms of, okay, they like going to this guy, they like tight ends, they like wide receivers. Jameis is not like that. So I do like Njoku receptions, and the other one would probably be Dustin Hopkins field goals. Denver's defense is so stingy, and I expect Jameis to try to move the ball downfield. I just think he's going to stall out. So I think Hopkins field goals probably figures out a way to get there. All right. Hot reads. So you usually come with 2. Now you're telling us you got 3. What do you got?
I got 3. We had to buy out of the game for Sunday night, so we only really had 1 last week. So let's get a little bonus one in here. There's a theme, so let me set up the theme here. We're going under. It's all 3 unders, and it's all 3 unders in division games. I got a whole bunch of trends that pop for me late in the season. Week 14 forward in a division game is probably your rematch. So this is a team you're very familiar against. You know what's coming. There's probably weather involved in a lot of these cases, and the defenses usually have the advantage late. So first one is the first game on the slate next week. Thursday night, Packers-Lions. Under 51.5. That is a big number. And look, it's the Packers and Lions. It's not exactly enticing to go under on that team, but we're going under the number, not the teams here. The Lions defense is pretty good. Top 3 run and pass defense. Green Bay's defense has been trending up. I know there's some turnover luck in there, but still pretty good. Another thing I like a lot, I'm going to get a lot of run the football here. Packers, other than Philly, have been the most run-heavy team in the league. And we know Detroit wants to run. They always want to run the football. So last time they played, about a month ago, 24-14, Detroit wins the game. These teams combined for 9 drives of 8 plays or longer. So they're chewing up the clock, just moving the ball, run the football. The first quarter had 2 possessions. We didn't finish the second possession in the first quarter. 24-14, 38 points, including a pick 6 and a garbage touchdown late in the game. So this is a matchup that really didn't have points. And here's a couple of those trends for you. Division trend, week 14 and forward. Home favorite under 7 points. Under is 127, 94 and 1, 58% to the under. And then week 14 and forward division game where the home team, Detroit, has gone under in 4 or more of their last 5 games. So they've been an under team lately. 53, 35 and 2 to the under, 61% there. Dan Campbell, when it's 51 or higher, 10 and 5 to the under. If they do go over, it's usually because Detroit just put up like a monster number. I don't think we're going to get that here. And then Thursday unders, 51 total and above, 29 and 1 to the under, 69% hit rate on that one. So just lots of trends here. Thursday, if it's a high number, it's just too many points usually on a kind of an ugly thing. And look, I know they're kind of on full rest because it goes Thanksgiving to Thursday here. Yeah. But 51 is the last high key number. I think this one's going to drop below that because of it. So I will take the under 51.5 Packers-Lions Thursday night.
Yeah, last 4 Lions home games with 50 or more have all gone under. Campbell 12 and 7 to the under, 50 or more. Going under, and more importantly, going under by 4.5 points per game. So I don't mind it.
All right, number 2, Seahawks, Cardinals. I teased this one earlier. Under 45.5. I kind of made the case already. If you listen to those game recaps, I think both defenses are really trending up much better than people think right now. Cardinals hold the Vikings to 273 yards today, 1 of 8 on third down. That defense that I thought was the least talented defense in the league, credit to Nick Rallis, the defensive coordinator. They're top half the league by DVOA overall against the run, against the pass. I don't think they're great, but they are hanging in there and they are definitely trending up. Seattle's defense, we've talked a lot about. They totally shut down the Jets after the early drive. Outside of week 4 to 6, in that stretch, they played 3 games in 11 days. They're missing like half of the starters. They cut a couple linebackers. They traded for Ernest Jones since then. I think the numbers basically say this is a top 5 defense, excluding that little 3-game stretch there. They have looked the part in this last month or so. And look, these teams just played 2 weeks ago. It was 16 to 6 in that game. And one of the touchdowns was a pick 6. I mentioned that because you assume that's not going to come up again. So the offenses combined for 16 points in that game. Both quarterbacks got sacked 5 times. Seattle can't block anybody right now. Neither team could run. Neither team hit 300 yards. So same division trends here as Packers-Lions. Week 14 and forward, home favorite under 7, 58% of the under. Home team going under for the last 5, 61% of the under. Not really a key number quite here, 45.5, but 40 to 44 is kind of a block of key numbers. So I'd rather just grab this now. I know it's the side I want to be on. So this is kind of your bonus pick here, under 45.5, Seahawks, Cardinals.
Yeah, since November 1st, 2 teams are undefeated to the under. Falcons, Cardinals. Cardinals are going under in their 4 games by 10.1 points per game. What else you got?
All right, last one. This is my favorite, actually, but we're doing them in order. Sunday Night Football. We love our Sunday night unders. Chargers, Chiefs, under 43.5. And this one is already moving and already moved past a key number. So this one you've got to get right now. Look, both defenses are fading a little bit. We've talked about that with both these teams, but they're still top 10 on the season. Chargers offense was awful today against a bad Falcons defense. They've not been great without J.K. Dobbins. I know we joked earlier about who's J.K. Dobbins. They're not running the ball well when he's out there, but they try to anyways. The Chiefs have Isaiah Pacheco back. They're running a little bit, and I think they might be able to run on the Chargers, who are not great defensively against the run. We've seen them get hurt lately. I'm fine with that. Go ahead. 12-play run drives up and down the field. Do your thing. Neither of these teams really has explosive weapons, right? These are teams you get bored watching their games. Just long, boring drives. Chargers 17-13 today. How many times have we seen that game? Well, I'll tell you one of them. Week 4, they played the Chiefs 17-10. You know what I remember about that game? Nothing, because nothing happened in that game. The Chargers had 224 yards. Nothing important happened in that game. I think that sets up well here. I had 8 trends in Bet Labs pop to the under on this one. I might get that on a side sometimes. I never get that many on an under. So here's some of the trends that stick out. Again, with the home favorite under 7 in a late division game, 58%. Week 14 and forward, division game outdoors, which this one will be. 47 degrees or below, 99, 60, and 40 to the under, 62%. That's a pretty strong one. Looks like 10-mile-an-hour winds. We're a week away, so who knows? But it is outside in Kansas City in the winter. 61% of the under for windy unders since 2021. Jim Harbaugh, when it's below 44 points, 59% of the under. And then you said it already, we love our primetime unders. Depends on the day this year, but apparently we still like Sunday night. And 61% of the under prime time since 2019. Chargers are 8-4 to the under this season. They had not had a 40-point game, not them, but the whole game until the last 3 in a row. So it felt like, okay, regression. Things have caught up to them. Well, that was against the Bengals. That was against the Ravens. That was against really good offenses, which sadly, it's not Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs right now. It's just not. We all watch the game. We know what's happening. Back to 30 points against Atlanta today for a Chargers game. Their average is 37.3 on the season. This one's already moving. It was 44.5 this morning. It's 43.5 now. The juice is coming in on the under. I think it's going to keep going that way. 40, 41, 43, 44. Those are all key numbers. I think it's going to keep sliding through that range. So under 43.5 Sunday night. Get all 3 of these division unders. We already played one. We already got the Steelers Browns under as well. That one went up a little bit. I'm not too worried. I like that one still as well. Division unders late in the season, especially outdoors. These teams hate each other. They know each other too well. Got to give a favor to the defense and take the under here.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can find 44, even buying up maybe minus 115, it's worth it. 44 is very key. I will say this, and this is very unexpected. Mahomes, home starts. 20-7 to the under. I'm going to call it Arrowhead because I'll always call it Arrowhead. At Arrowhead, last 3 seasons, 20-7, 74% to the under, going under by 5.4 points per game. He is the most profitable quarterback to the under in his home games over the last 3 years. So just completely the trend for him in that situation. Slow it up, run the ball, and that's exactly what the Chargers do. So makes complete sense. All right, we've gotten through 12 games, 3 picks, and that's it. That's the podcast. That's what we've done. All right, so next week is the last week for buys. I believe we have 6 teams on bye next week, and then buys are done. We're in the home stretch. So this has been the Action Network podcast. I'm Evan Abrams. That's Brandon Anderson. We will be back next week and every week after that as a recap after the Sunday Night Football game. And that's it. Enjoy the slate, enjoy the bets, and we'll see you guys soon.